Hello everyone, my name is Alv. Welcome to my first ever YouTube video. So, for my first ever video, I thought I would go ahead and give a first impressions or a new player perspective on The Elder Scrolls Online, which I've been playing for about a week now. So the game is very interesting in that right now we don't really have a great market for MMOs. There's World of Warcraft, which is in a pretty poor state, and there's a lot of Eastern MMOs which have their issues with marketing and monetization and things like that. So I was really looking for an MMO to sink my teeth into as an avid MMO fan of 10 plus years. And I decided to once again pick up The Elder Scrolls Online, which I gave up shortly after launch due to a variety of issues with the launch of the game. So, since this is my first ever video, if you want to check out my Twitch, twitch.tv/alvgaming, I'll be streaming as much as I can, pretty much nightly at this point. So I would be grateful if you guys would go check that out. So let me talk about myself so you know a little bit about the reviewer before I start this. I am an avid Elder Scrolls fan. I started with Morrowind back in the day. Oblivion is one of my most played games of all time and really got me into gaming. And on the flip side of that, I'm also an avid MMO fan. I've been a World of Warcraft player basically since the launch. I have an ungodly amount of time in that game. I've played every MMO that's come out. Star Wars: The Old Republic, I put in hundreds of hours. Elder Scrolls Online, I've now put in, roughly probably 40 or 50 hours. A lot of the Eastern MMOs I pick up and put down, but I've pretty much tried every MMO out there, besides a few popular ones that I'm not a big fan of, like RuneScape and things like that. So, just a little bit of a backstory of who I am and where I'm coming from with this review so you understand the perspective of it. So, just to give you a little bit of a heads up on where I'm at in the game, as you can see, I'm level 46. The level cap in this game is 50, so I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting close, and I thought it'd be about a good time to start reviewing before I got to the end game. Um, I know that there's a champion point system at endgame, which is a continuous level process. Uh, because of the nature of that, I decided to start this review or this first impressions before I reached that cap. Um, I figured it'd be a better indication of the game before I started grinding that out. Although I've heard that it's pretty simple to get to the point where your gear stops scaling in that system. So if you guys want endless content, this is definitely the game for you. I've put in already probably 40 to 50 hours on this character, and he's not max level, which I know to many Elder Scrolls Online players is going to probably shock them, but I've been taking my time and really taking in the game and getting a feel for it. So, also, I just want to point out that I have not bought the chapters or expansions for this game, what they call chapters. So, I will be reviewing Elsewhere, the new expansion that just came out 2 days ago. I'll be reviewing that soon. Once I hit max level, I plan to purchase that as well as the other two chapters or expansions, and I will be looking at them as well. So this is just the base game, and this is pre-end game. So this is first impressions, new character, experienced MMO player, how I view the game. All right, so let's start out with the most important part for a lot of players, which is monetization. So the game has a fairly interesting monetization platform, which I think has its cons and its pros to a certain extent. So the game is buy to play. I think the base game is currently $20, 15 or $20 if you want to just buy the game. Uh, very good, very good price for the game, in my opinion. Um, so if you want to just hop into the game, it's great and cheap to get into. But once you get into the game, there's then a few monetization options. So the first is ESO Plus, which is basically their subscription service, same as World of Warcraft, $15 a month, or you get a dollar or two off if you pay for extended months. The difference between ESO Plus, though, and World of Warcraft is it's certainly not required to play at all. You don't need ESO Plus. I haven't picked it up yet. Um, Basically, what you get is access to all the DLC, which is the big selling point for ESO Plus. I think that's, if you want to check out things like the Dark Brotherhood or the Thieves Guild or those minor DLCs, not the expansions, mind you, but the minor DLCs, then definitely pay for 1 month of ESO Plus. Check it out, see what you think, and then go from there. You also get currency for the in-game store, which we'll talk about in a minute. Some deals, which don't really matter, in my opinion. And then the big one, which is the craft bag. And this, I hate that they have this in ESO Plus, and I wish they would take it out, but I understand it's a big selling point. So in your inventory, you'll see my inventory space is currently capped out, and I did this while my inventory was capped out, so you can see just how ridiculous this is. So here's all the weapons and armor, decent amount that I have in my bag. This is just from questing, running a few dungeons, doing a few things. So probably an hour of game time. But once you go over here to my materials, you'll see there's just pages, and I clean these out. I sell them as much as possible, but you get so many crafting materials if you're deconstructing that it just becomes absolutely ridiculous. So if you subscribe to ESO Plus, you get a craft bag which stores all of this and frees up all of that space. So you can basically just loot to your heart's content. So really, I mean, that's the reason, in my opinion, that you would get ESO Plus, which is kind of not my favorite way to monetize the game, and I wish they would do something about that. But maybe later on I'll warm up to it a little bit. I know they need to make money, and I know that monetizing it that way is good for them, but not my favorite way. So it also gives you a slight progression, increased experience in gold acquisition. That's not a big deal. 10% is a drop in the bucket. Plus you get scrolls. You get these scrolls when you level. Let's see if I have any. Yeah, you get these experience scrolls when you level or when you log in daily that basically give you 50% boost or 100% boost for an hour, 2 hours, etc., etc. So that's really not the reason you buy it. So this is definitely not a buy to win game. Uh, so so monetization is interesting. The last thing the last thing we want to talk about in monetization is the chapters. So I don't really have a way of showing you this without logging out. Let's see if there's something in the store. Here we go. So if you go to chapters here, you'll see there are 3 expansions so far. So currently in the store there's only Elsewhere, because if you buy Elsewhere you get the other 2 expansions if you buy the standard version. So it's still a buy to play model with all of the expansions, which could be a benefit to some players. Some players could hate it. It just all depends on how you like to pay for your games. If you want to buy the expansion, it's $60 if you want the other 2 expansions and $40 if you only want this expansion. Now, it's not necessary to buy the expansions to this game. It's not like World of Warcraft where the whole game changes. It's introducing new features, a new zone, new story, etc., etc. But it's definitely not required to play the game. So buy it if you wish. If you don't want to, if you don't feel like going through the story, you don't need to buy it. So that's a big benefit in my mind, is that you don't have to buy these if you don't want to. Let me get away from this lady yelling. It's pretty obnoxious. Give me 1 second. So, let's next talk about combat. So now that you guys know what you have to do, if you want to play the game, try it out. It's $20, and then you can go from there. Let's talk about combat a little bit. Combat's really interesting. So to start out, you have 1 bar, which you'll see at the bottom of my screen, with those 5 buttons and then an ultimate button. It's almost like a League of Legends or something setup, but it's definitely not. So don't think that you're gonna be getting a MOBA MMO. It's definitely not that. Once you hit level 15, you get access to a back bar, which is a second set of 5 skills and a different ultimate. So in total, you have 10 skills in an ultimate at any given time. You cannot slot more than those 10 skills and the 2 ultimates. Okay? So the bars go off the weapons you're using, which is where the intricacy in this game comes in. There are multiple classes. You'll see I am a Nightblade, so I have access to my 3 class skill lines. Each of these tend to do a different sort of thing, but all these skills can be useful based on what you're slotting into what. And then as far as weapons are concerned, you have everything standard from your 2-hand to your dual wield to your 1-hand and shield to your bow, and then staffs can be, if you're going to do like a caster DPS, you're going to use staves. If you're going to be or staves, sorry. If you're going to be a healing character, you're going to use like a restoration staff and then maybe something in your off bar, or just 2 restoration staffs. So you'll always have a weapon. It's not like you're just not going to use weapons, and they determine your bars. But you don't have to use the skills from each of those weapons, so you can mix and match. So for example, I looked up a build before I started playing. I'm playing as a stamina based Nightblade character. So you'll see all my attribute points are in stamina. I have put nothing into health and magicka. And this just boosts my overall skills, my ability. It boosts my run speed, and you'll get attribute points about every level. It varies on how many you get per level. Sometimes you'll see here you get 1 for the next level, but 3 once I hit level 50. It just depends on which milestones you're hitting. So in your skill lines, you can really mix and match to your heart's content, and you can build some very interesting characters. You don't have to follow a build. Builds are just optimized ways to play. Once you get to end game, people will tend to want you to run these if you're doing harder content. But if you're doing normal content, you don't really need to worry about them. You just build however you want to build. So in my case, I'm building. There's a dual wield, so there's a couple dual wield skills, a couple of my class skills, and then I'm doing a bow on my back bar. Now, the interesting part about this too is once you level up these skills enough by keeping them slotted onto your bars and using them, these skills will morph and you'll get one of two options. They tend to be 1 stamina, 1 magicka. So uh, once you pick an option, really a lot of these skills can open up for different playstyles. So for example, if I have a siphoning skill that is morphed for stamina, right? It gives me attack power and things like that when I attack. But if I did morphed it for magicka, it might heal me or it might heal my party. So that's where, any class can do anything in this game. So you'll look at my Nightblade and you'll say, "Oh, that's a rogue, that's a stealth character," but it can be a healer. It can be a good tank. It can be a caster DPS. Like you can do literally anything in this game. So it creates a lot of interesting builds. I'm not a huge fan of the combat style compared to certain other games. I enjoy it. I think it's passable, but I don't think it's exceptional. You have this reticle, as you can see in the middle of my screen, so you somewhat target, but it'll lock on. So you'll see if I'm looking at this NPC, if he was an enemy, like if I'm in the area, it'll lock on and I'll still hit him with my abilities, right? So uh, it's kind of an action-based combat system, but it's really not. So it's basically whatever 10 skills you want to mix and match, plus your light attack, and your heavy attack if you hold down the click, and that goes for both weapon types. Even the staffs do this. So interesting combat. It really you got to get a feel for it, see if you like it. It takes some time to get used to, but it's kind of a blend of action and tab targeting to an extent. Which is interesting. A lot of people like it. And you can play in both third person, so you can zoom out as far as that, and you can also play in first person, which I would not recommend unless you're just playing solo, having some fun, because it is impossible to see things, and it's really wonky. I know they needed to include the first person for ESO or Elder Scrolls fans, but it can be a bit wonky. So let's talk about how you level. Leveling in this game can be a combination of a lot of things. The uh, most optimized way to level is to grind, which I know a lot of people are going to instantly be turned off by, and I didn't do it at all. I have not grinded on this character. I just have to mention it because it's purely the most optimized way to level is to find a good grinding spot and just kill enemies over and over and over again. So if you want to just speed run to end game, that's how you do it. However, you won't get any of the unlocks. You won't get any of the additional skill points, anything like that. So basically, the best way to level for a new player, I would think, is to go through your zone story. So for example, you'll see I started a character in the Daggerfall Covenant. So I started in this zone and went to this zone and then this zone. And you'll see all the things I have unlocked in these zones. And this is just a fraction of the map. I mean, you can see this is the map and then there's a few other places. It's just absolutely massive. So, and this is the DLC down here and down up here. So there's a lot of content in this game. I mean, you can spend hundreds of hours just questing. Quests are voice acted. They're they range from decent or they range from pretty bad to pretty exceptional. I've had some really great quests that I'm like, wow, this is an Elder Scrolls game. I'm having a lot of fun. And I've had some quests where it's not good. It's pretty poor writing. But I mean, you're gonna find that in an MMO this big. There's thousands of quests, so you can't expect everyone to be exceptional. So usually what you'll do, or how I've taken it, is I've gone through each zone. You'll go to these areas. you'll unlock these little points that are either just, you're visiting them, or you're going to like a quest hub and you're doing some quests, or you'll have these little what are called delves, which are little solo dungeons, things like that. You'll just go through, you'll progress, you'll unlock as much as you can. It's a good, fun way to level. It's well paced. If you enjoy the story, you can take your time. If you don't, you can click through the quests. I would recommend that's the best way to level for a new player. You can also once a day. Wrong button. Once a day, you will get these Dungeon Finder rewards. So this is not this. I'll do Battleground. So this is the premium reward that unlocks every 24 hours. It is a ridiculous amount of XP, and it gives you good supplies. So if you want to do your Battleground and your dungeon every day, this will be much more XP. I've already done mine today. Do that once a day quest. Probably the best way to level for a new player. It's a lot of fun. That's how I'd recommend you go ahead and do it. So, while leveling, let's talk about the story a little bit. So, it's somewhat typical Elder Scrolls story, a little bit different than normal. So, there's three factions in this story. The factions don't really matter except for PvP in the Cyrodiil, which is the main PvP area, which we'll talk about later. The factions are kind of at war, but they don't really recognize you as another faction except for some story quests. Picking your faction is not a big deal. We'll talk about character creation towards the end. I don't like to talk about that at the beginning, so we'll talk about that a little bit at the end just so you guys get an understanding of, what it's like to create a character. But really, your faction does not matter, is what I'm getting at here. It really just matters for the story. So pick the ones that you think is interesting. The Daggerfall Covenant is the Bretons, the Orcs, and the Redguards. The Aldmeri Dominion is the High Elves, Wood Elves, and Khajiit. And the Ebonheart Pact is the Dark Elves, the Nords, and the Argonians. So whichever story you think is interesting, and what really is great about this game is if you're creating an alt character, put them in a different covenant, put them in a different faction, and start over here. So instead of questing through the same quests, you'll come over here, you can do these quests. And once you're done with your main story, or at any point in the game, because of the one Tamriel update from a few years ago, you can do literally any quest, any faction on any character. So it's really great for getting the whole story. You can level through the Dark Brotherhood, you can level through the expansions from 1 to 50. You can level literally anywhere in any content that you wish. It's great. So, leveling is one of the best experiences I've had in any MMO so far. I think the only better experience I've had is Star Wars: The Old Republic, and that's just because the story was so engrossing and so well done. But this game has pretty exceptional leveling. So if you enjoy leveling, if you enjoy story, definitely check this out. Get to end game, see what you think of the story. Even if you don't go through end game, just level through the story and have a good time. So let's talk a little bit about character customization. So you have some interesting customization available to you. There's a lot available through the store, which you don't have to participate in, but for example, you can get mounts, you can pay for them. Nothing buy to win, which is great, just purely cosmetic. But there's a lot to collect in this game, and I know a lot of people have fun just collecting, and there's also housing, which is a big draw to a lot of people. So you can do everything from your appearance to you can collect all these appearance items which change just your helm slot or your head slot, etc. You can get body markings, and one of the big things is you can get costumes. So like right now I'm just wearing my gear. If I put on say the Dark Brotherhood costume, let me get back to that screen. If I put on the Dark Brotherhood costume, I now have a full set of gear. If I put on the Covenant Scout costume, different one, etc. And then I can put it away. Oop, clicked it too many times, and just get my normal gear back. So collecting can be great. You can do it with mounts, pets, non-combat pets, emotes, etc., etc. There's also like things like personalities, which you can see my character's flicking a dagger around because I have the assassin personality unlocked. Just a lot of cool things that you can do to customize your character and make it your own. There's also housing. I mean, housing is a big, big deal in this game. You can buy houses. They range in price. I'll go to the store once again just to show you this. They range in price by a lot, and you can buy them purely through the game, or you can buy them through the Crown Store. It's up to you. See, if you go to Notable Homes, you can see just how expensive these are, but how huge they are. And you can spend thousands of hours customizing your house. It's housing. It's an MMO. It's the same as any other housing in any other MMO, basically. If you enjoy it, great. If you don't, you can avoid it. I haven't touched it yet, but I do plan on doing it. I like housing to an extent. It's not my favorite, but it's there and it's fun if you enjoy it. So, let me talk about one of my big cons with this game. So, let me bring up the screen again. Where is it? Guilds. So, pros of guilds. First of all, you can be in 5 guilds at one time, which is amazing. I mean, it's so good to be able to be in multiple guilds, to not have the issue of, wanting to join your friends in a different guild while you're already in a guild. That's a lot of fun. The cons to guilds, and as you can see, I'm not in one yet. Let's see if we can find the guild traders. I think they're out. Where are they in the city? Are they over here? Hmm. I don't remember where they are. Essentially, so let's say this is a guild trader over here, right? So let's say this person's a guild trader. Trading in this game, the auction house, for any of you World of Warcraft players, trading is really wonky. Guilds, trading guilds, quote unquote, are formed and they sponsor a trader in any city. So for example, this guy will be their trader. They'll pay a premium amount because this is one of the main cities for their trader to be here, and only their guild members can post items to that trader, but anyone can buy them. Really, really weird. I really hate this system. I frankly, it's turned me off from trading and from selling items so much. I don't engage with it at all. It's a terrible, terrible system. I really hope ZeniMax in the future rethinks it. I know some players like it. I despise it. I think it's awful. Uh, so that's a big, big con to the game for me. But you can't avoid trading altogether if you don't want to deal with it. You can also, join. What people will typically do is join 3 trading guilds, and they have their traders in different cities. The big deal with that, the problem with that though, is the trading guilds will usually require you to sell an X amount of gold per week in order to pay for their trading costs and things like that, which is just not a fun way to play with the game. So that's a big con for me. It may not be for some other people, but it definitely is for me. So let's talk about mounts and crafting. These are pros and cons too. Mounts and crafting also kind of turn me off a little bit in how they're doing them, and I wish they would rethink the system as well. So you'll get your base mount for playing the game, as you can see, and you can get other mounts as well. They're purely cosmetic. However, when you go to the stable master here, you'll see that you have your speed, your stamina, and your carrying capacity. Once every 24 hours, you click this button and your speed gets upgraded 1%, or your stamina, or your carrying capacity, and then you just wait 24 hours to do it again. And it is painful. I mean, if you think it goes up to 60%, if we're talking 24 hours, that's 60 days that you have to log on and just click a button just to get your speed the whole way up. And this is not per account, this is per character. Absolutely awful system. I hate this. I know one of the things that I especially hate about it is they sell in the Crown Store mount, you know, I think it's under utility. Basically, they sell like mount experience, so you can, just buy to upgrade this. It's absolutely awful. It's designed to keep you logging into the game. There's a couple of systems like this. There's a daily login thing. It's just designed to keep you logging into the game and clicking a button, but it's really terrible, especially if you're an altaholic. You're really going to hate that system. Let's go over to crafting. So crafting has its pros and its cons. It's not strictly as terrible as the mounts are concerned. So there's a bunch of crafting skill lines, and they take your skill points, just like your abilities, which is interesting. But don't worry, there are plenty of skill points to go around. You can see I have 2 because I just don't know what to spend them on right now. There's a lot of professions in this game. So there's everything from making bows and shields, to enchanting, to making food, to light and medium armor, to heavy armor, to potions and poisons and things like that. Really up to you. You don't have to engage with the crafting system, but if you want to, it can be great. Like I enjoy it to an extent. What I don't enjoy, again, is research. So as you can see, for example, here, once you get an item, it will have a secondary stat on it. So let me pull up an item real quick for you. So you can see there, sharpened, increases physical and spell penetration by X amount. So you go over here to your crafting bench and you say, right now I'm researching 2 out of 2, but you say, okay, I have a thing that can be researched here. So you click on this and you put your item in. I can't do it right now, but you put your item in, you click research, and then it takes 1 day, 19 hours. This can vary. It can be 24 hours. It can be 2 days. It's obnoxious. It is so long. You have to hoard items in your bag to be able to research later. I do not like this system at all. Again, it's designed to keep you logging in, keep you crafting. I'm not a fan. I wish there were better ways to do this. And again, they sell speed ups in the store. Really wish ZeniMax would relook at this as well. Not a fan of this. However, I love the deconstructing system, which is you put your items in, you deconstruct. It's usually better than selling. You get crafting materials out of it. I love the improvement system. You can put your items that you craft or other items in. You use certain materials. You upgrade them to different qualities. That's great. Big fan of that. Creation system is a lot of fun. You can use X number of materials to make it, X levels. So this is 38. If I add more, it's a 44. You can do it in different styles, so different looks, which is really fun, and you can give it traits. Big fan of that. And there's also things like ore out in the world and things like that for you to collect. So that's great. I love the depth of crafting in this game. What I don't like again is the time sinks. The time sinks are the worst element of this game. You don't have to engage with them. Once again, you absolutely can go through the game without engaging with either one of those, other than really you're going to want to click that button on your mount every day or you're going to be going really slowly. But, you know, can be obnoxious. Uh, and they're clearly designed just to keep people logging in, which is not fun. So let me talk a little bit about PvP. I'm not a big PvP person. There are battlegrounds just like in WoW. Let's see, where is it? Here we go. There are battlegrounds just like in WoW. You can engage with them if you want. They can be fun. They're usually 3 teams, which is really interesting. I've had some good fun playing them. Still not my favorite though. And then the big thing is the Alliance War. So in the main PvP area of Cyrodiil, you can see all these things. The interesting part, though, is that the alliances fight over these things and try to get to the Imperial City and conquer it with keep warfare and etc. It's a lot like Warhammer Online, if anyone remembers that game. Not as engaging and in-depth as that game, but still interesting. There's sieges, there's battles, etc., etc. And if you put in enough PvP time, you can be crowned the Emperor for that week. I think it's weekly. And getting that gives you a title and armor and some really cool stuff. It's a lot like the rank 14 PvP grind from Vanilla WoW. I really enjoy how they've put that into this game. I'm a big fan of that. I'm just not a big PvP person, so that's not really my thing. But if you are, there's a lot of content here. There's a lot of people who play this game strictly for the PvP, and that's great. It can be, great because there's a lot of open world, there's a lot of instanced. Really up to you what you want to do. So let me talk about group content before we get to the end here. So group content I haven't quite gotten to yet. As you can see, this is a first impression, so I'll do one again once I start doing the raids or quote-unquote trials. But from what I hear, there's multiple ways to do in-game content. There's dungeons, there's hard mode dungeons, there's raids, there are solo dungeons, there are, open world content, there's things like that. And with the new expansion, there's even dragons, which are open world PvP or open world PvE bosses. So right now, when you're leveling, if you're a new player, the dungeon finder's great. The dungeons can be a lot of fun. I've had some really memorable dungeons. The groups, again, suffers from not having to form your own party, but this is a modern MMO concept of just clicking a button, joining with people, never talking, and going through it. However, at endgame, you're definitely going to need to form your own parties, join guilds, do that sort of thing. So that is there. However, you're not going to find that in the leveling as much. You're kind of just going to press a button, run through a dungeon, experience it, leave. There's story in dungeons too, though, which is great. It's a lot of fun. So, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's talk about character creation a little bit before we move on to my final thoughts and if you should play the game. So, I chose to do character creation at the end because if you've stayed this long, you're probably going to end up playing the game. You want to see what it's like to create a character. So, character creation, you can see you have all these races and the three alliances that we talked about earlier. If you buy just the base game, you will only be able to play, for example, a Breton in the Daggerfall or any of these races that are vertical to the alliance. However, if you buy the any race any alliance upgrade, which I have just from buying the game a long time ago, you can play any race in any alliance, just as stated. If you buy the Imperial Edition, which I do not have, you can get the Imperial race, which again, it seemed on launch that it was going to be buy to play, but Imperials tend to be kind of pretty bad when you're going to min-max your character, so they're just humans. They're not exciting. So choose to do that if you want. So male or female, character name, you can do first and last name in this game, which is interesting. Class, there are 4 base classes, 2 from the expansions. This is from the new expansion. This is from the first expansion. And again, any class can do anything. So you can view them in their max level gear, which is really interesting. And this is updated since I last checked it out, which is a lot of fun. So you can see different, what they look like, male, female, that sort of thing. And then interesting character customization options, color, size, things like that. It's not super in depth, but it's passable. Same with face. And like I said, you can get a lot of collectibles in game that really customize your character. So it can be good. I like the character customization. It feels like an Elder Scrolls game. It's passable. So let me finish off this video. I know it's probably getting super long, and because this is my first video, I don't really know how to edit or anything, so this is just one long take. So if you've stayed with me this long, thank you for watching the video. Should you play this game? If you enjoy MMOs, pick it up. It's a good MMO. It hasn't blown my socks off to the point where I would say, oh my god, this is World of Warcraft, Burning Crusade. I'll play this every day for 30 hours a day. Oh my god, I love it. It's not that good. But it's good. It's very good in its current state. A lot of people put down the game right after launch due to its issues. If you did that, try it again. It's much different than launch. It's in a really good state. If you're an Elder Scrolls fan, try it. See what you think. Uh, as an Elder Scrolls fan, I will tell you this is definitely not your typical Elder Scrolls game. You're not going to get the same depth. You're not going to get the same story. You're not going to get the same single player experience that you get in an Elder Scrolls game. Unfortunately, that's the trade-off we get for it being an MMO. However, it's good. There are some great quests that make me think that I'm playing Elder Scrolls 6, and there are some really poor quests. It's a mixed bag of what you're going to get, but I would say the great quests outweigh the poor quests. Overall, you can play this as a single player experience. You'll get a lot of content, well worth the $20, and then the more if you want to buy the chapters and the DLC and subscribe to all that. However, I would caution you, just don't go near the store at first. Just play the game. You don't need ESO Plus. If you're wondering, do I need to buy ESO Plus? Do I need to buy the chapters? You do not need to buy anything but the base game. Try it out, see what you think, get to max level, then buy the other things. Unless you really want to play a different class. If you really want to play a different class, unlock that chapter or that class. So, thank you guys for sticking with me. This has been Alv. Like I said, I'll be streaming on Twitch as much as I can. I really encourage you to check out the game. I'll be playing it on stream a little bit here and there, as well as other games. I love a variety of games, everything from FPS to MMO, so I'll be playing everything over on my Twitch screen, or Twitch stream, which is linked in the description. And thank you guys for watching.